And here we go. I'll tell you what, the Rebels Edge, we got my man. Look at you back there, man. Back at the Rebellion, standing in front of it. You got all the stuff. You got the bells and whistles, the brick. I love it, man. It looks good. Looks great, Glenn.
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's Football Thursday, brother. I mean, it's back.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to have to start getting John the hell out of here on Thursdays. We're going to drag you in for Thursday Night Football. We could do it all year, man. I mean, for the people who don't know, Glenn has some ties to the NFL, just like all of us do. In Glenn's case, he was working. He was the smart one. See, my body is completely shot to hell. I mean, fingers, thumbs, all of them broken. I got stuff in all of them, metal here and there, knees, all that stuff. And Glenn was the guy kind of walking down the hall going, "Hey, man, coach would like to see you." He was the Grim Reaper for the Houston Texans, right, Glenn? You guys. By the way, we've been talking about it all week. Hard Knocks. Were you there for Hard Knocks?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, It was a good season, but unfortunately had to make some tough cuts there at the end of the episodes. Yeah, you could go back and check that one out. But definitely brings back some memories watching Hard Knocks every year and just going back to those times, great times that you have at training camp, just building up that brotherhood.
Yep.
But then it comes down to the cuts, and that's where it gets real tough,
Yep. We got some games tonight, by the way, and we get a chance to I'm not sure how it's going to all unfold, and we're going to talk about this in sports, but one of those quarterbacks that went really, really high, and Stroud from Ohio State, that should be fun. Houston going against New England, and then you got the Vikings, my Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins, and the quarterback from Netflix, he's going to be out there in Seattle, my man Pete Carroll. I'm so old, I played for Pete Carroll when he was the youngest coach in football. Now he's the oldest coach in football. I mean, shit. Stuff is going wrong, man, for me. But anyway, we're going to get right to it. I love having you with us, man, and we're going to get after it right now, starting off with the Macro Minute. And as we talk about the Macro Minute, Glenn, I'm as focused on CPI. You can't get much more macro than that. But we're talking about inflation all the time. Everybody's concerned about it. Everybody's talking about the Fed. We've got all these numbers. It actually came in a little bit lower than expected. And it seemed to be, at least for a little while, a pretty decent catalyst for the markets moving to the upside. So I'm going to say that is my Macro Minute. How about you? You could go with that if you want, or something else, whatever you want.
Yeah, I think you have to, but I think where I want to, kind of hone in on is the expectation that they're not going to hike in September. They keep doing this every time and time again, where the Fed keeps telling you we're nowhere near close to cutting, and they don't know if they're going to pause or not. And everyone's coming out expecting that there's going to be that pause in September. I think we still have some numbers to look at before we get there, and a lot can change between now and a month from now.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we're going to jump right away to the next one. Fantastic futures. Jared's got us something, maybe. Jared?
Fantastic future.
Very, very well done. Very well done. All right, so here's my fantastic futures for today. We talk about treasuries. We talk about it all the time, the 2s, the 10s. We even talk about some of the other ones, but I think those are the one that everybody's focused on. I focused on it for this reason, Glenn. The 2-year, if it got above 5, that's not good for the markets. It did not. It pulled back, and it's pulled back dramatically. 4.76 is last I saw. I look at the 10-year, though. It's pretty sticky up there near 4. Now, we got below 4, but we've been kind of hanging around 4 for the month of August. So that's kind of concerning, because that gives everybody at least another excuse to say, you know what, let me jump over here and maybe get rid of some of these NASDAQ stocks that have run to the upside. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the 10-year is the one to look at. I don't think it's going anywhere, down from 4. And you saw that intraday reversal in the markets, and that was all because of that 10-year and the dollar. I'll point out the dollar too made a big reversal early this morning as well, which caused the markets to fall as well. So I think those are the two to watch. I'm watching the 10-year and the dollar and see where those go to see where the market might be headed, at least in the short term.
Awesome. Love it, man. Love it. All right, now we're going to jump to our next segment where we've got 4 stocks we're going to cover in a very short period of time. We're going to start off with one that Glenn and I really like. Matter of fact, we've both been to Vegas a lot. By the way, Sin City, it's fantastic. It's not all about sins. There is some betting going on. But I'm going to give you this now. So WYNN comes out. Now, just so everybody fully understands what WYNN is, they are a company that does have representation in Vegas still. But let's be honest, it's about Macau. That's who these guys are. Percentage of revenue, all you've got to do is look at that and you're going to understand exactly what I'm talking about. By the way, Las Vegas Sands, even bigger and much more to Macau. So you would go into it thinking, wow, these earnings are probably not going to be very good. Everybody's talking about how the Chinese, the economy there and this and that and everything else. Well, they crushed it. Their earnings, they hit 91 cents. They're looking for 51 cents. At the Palace, the revenue was up 294% year over year. At Macau, up 185% year over year. Vegas, up about 27% year over year. Shows you about what they're doing and where it's happening. Vegas bounced back. These others are finally starting to bounce back. I think that WYNN's got a real good shot. And actually, when you look at what it's done year to date, Glenn, it's traded pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's room to run higher. I think this thing could make it back up to the 120s or so. I mean, RevPAR, that's the, revenue per available room, wasn't as strong as people had hoped. But I think that's just, summertime. Those numbers start to come down as you have the conferences that go away. As football season, conferences come back, I think you're going to see WYNN really start to take hold and in Las Vegas again. But Macau was where it was at. Macau just, beat all across the board, and it just looks great. And that's just going to continue to improve, like you mentioned. And that's why I think that stock could make it back up to the 120s or so.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting. I think next we got to jump on what? What's up? I'm not hearing Glenn. Glenn, we might have lost your mic for a sec there. Anyway,
no, I think we're good, but we do have John in the wings now. If you want to bring him on to say hi,
John, do you want to jump in real quick? Give us an opinion on WYNN and maybe Disney. Yeah.
With gambling, and I think that's going to put even more focus on them. So I like that. I think the fact that they're crushing numbers is not surprising, even though many people would have expected that this crush would come from China and their resorts over there. But I think it's a combination of people returning to Vegas as well, Pete and Glenn. And as far as Disney, I think they're going to be challenged because I view Mr. Iger, Pete, in a somewhat similar way to how I view Zuck, in that he's a great buyer, but he's not a great creator. He bought Pixar, he bought Star Wars, he bought Marvel. Those were all under his tenure as the CEO. Great purchases, and probably financed them extremely smartly. But I don't think he is the guy that has the creative side of it that, for instance, Eisner, the previous CEO before Iger came in, we all know that Iger had to come back after retirement. But I think that Eisner was more the creative side and Iger is more the buying side, guys.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, for sure. And it's something that's going to play out right in front of us too because of the cutting and everything else. By the way, I got to point out, Pat McAfee is what, Glenn, you're looking a lot like Pat right now. You're standing up, you got your microphone, the whole deal. You need to be in a tank top, bro.
I'd say I'm more like on the AJ Hawk side of things compared to you, but yeah, no problem.
Yeah. No, it looks great. Well, thanks, John. Really appreciate that. So we're going to jump on a little Disney. Disney's pretty interesting because when you really look at their numbers, they did beat on earnings. They missed on revenue. They had a lot of issues with the subs, and they were down about 7% on the Disney Plus platform. So to John's point, they've got all of this stuff. It took them forever to get to streaming. They were very late to streaming. Now that they're there, they're starting to feel the pains of streaming as well, and some of the costs there. $660 million they lost. So this is not something very easy. Today, the stock is up, but It was down, then it started to rally back, Glenn. It's been hit pretty hard over the last couple of weeks for a variety of reasons. I'm sort of in the John camp of I'm not sure right now is the time to necessarily buy Disney. I've been watching it close, thinking about it, but I don't know that I feel like it's a buy just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a downtrend overall, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think John nailed it right on the head with Iger. He's bought a lot of the assets that they have. For you Bluey fans out there on Disney Plus, I mean, that they bought that show. It's one of their number one shows on Disney Plus right now. They bought that one out of Australia as well. So, I think he's right about that. I think they're just going to continue to try to make partnerships like they did with the Penn deal, which that's exciting. But their parks are slowing comparatively over the last few years. I'm getting discount emails like crazy for their parks. And that's not a good sign either. So it'll be interesting. I think the turnaround story could be there, but I like being patient, waiting here, see where the stock settles out here in the 90s, and then maybe, try it out for a long run.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with just buying it piecemeal as you go in. John and I talk about that all the time. You don't have to buy it all in one chunk. If you're going to buy 1,000 shares, maybe you buy 250, buy another 250, that type of thing. Anyway, that all being said, we got to jump on to CAPRI because CAPRI is jumping like a big dog today. 56%. Now, why is that? How does a stock possibly do that? Well, when you got Tapestry out there saying, we'd like to buy you. Now, everybody was talking about this thing. It just wasn't happening. Well, it finally did. $8.5 billion deal. You've got Coach and Kate Spade going after Versace and Michael Kors. So very interesting. They're putting themselves together. Some people are a little bit critical about this, saying, hey, it's a little too much overlap. I don't think you need to do this. You don't have to do that. Everybody's got their opinion. I will say this. We had some unusual option activity in here, Glenn, not too many days ago, not weeks, days ago, where we had folks out there buying the September 42.5 calls, paying like 75, 80 cents, something like that. We had it on the blog. We had this, that, and the other. Well, those things traded north of $12 today. Not such a bad thing. John talks about 10Xing. 10X is nothing. We're talking about big time X's here. As you know, everything's bigger in Texas, and this particular X is huge. Unbelievable jump to the upside. It was rumored. It finally came true. What do you think about this deal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal, $8.5 billion. I think it's the right deal, to be honest, because I think there's a stickiness to the consumer when they want that certain brand. And I think you see that with these higher end brands where someone just likes that specific brand and they won't go anywhere else. And I think bringing them all together, this consolidation that we've been seeing in kind of the luxury goods market is smart. I think it's going to continue to play out, honestly. And yeah, I like it here. $8.5 billion deal. Last time I was on, there was $2 billion deals announced that same day. I don't know what it is about us and being on this program, but I mean, let's keep seeing the deals coming.
Yeah, let's keep having you come in, especially when it follows some unusual options just from the other day. I mean, we're going to take that every single time we can. All right.
By the way, there was unusual option activity on the Penn deal as well.
Yep.
When in Penn. So, it's been hot lately. We've talked about it a lot. Go to marketrebellion.com/bang if you want more of this UOA, because it's definitely heating up.
Yep. And John talks about these BOGOs all the time too. Buy 1 month, get the next month, that whole thing. That's a part of it as well. But check that out. I've got one last one for you, folks. I'm going to give you RIVIAN. And here's why, Glenn. You look at these numbers, you look at the revenue, it's up 207%. I mean, why is the stock down? Well, the stock made a really pretty nice run earlier during this year, and there was time for this thing to maybe pull back a little bit, and that time seems to be right now. Their production numbers, great. Their delivery numbers, great. Their earnings, better than expected, but still losing $1. They're losing money every single quarter, right? I mean, so that's something we talk about all the time is you become a public company. Once you become a public company, at some point in time, you got to start making money. They've been struggling. They haven't been able to do it yet. That's why I think RIVIAN is trading where it is. It's probably why it's trading down today. They just haven't been able to make money. Now, that being said, they got a great balance sheet. We've always talked about that. They got plenty of cash. They also have a cash burn. just be careful when you're looking at some of these names because, you know, at some point, whether it's Uber, whether it's whatever it is, they got to make money. Uber finally turned that corner, but can they do it quarter after quarter, or is it a one and done? RIVIAN, they still haven't made money.
Yeah, and you've seen Uber get rewarded for that, right? And I think that is the issue here with Rivian. I was looking at a chart comparison to when Tesla was putting out delivery numbers similar to what Rivian is doing now. They're losing 5 times more per vehicle than Tesla was at that time. I mean, so they need to find a way to cut that down. And then, like you said, you know, improve that that cash flow. And I think you'll start to see the stock bounce. Short interest could be there as well. And with the stock down as much as it is now, you could easily see that bounce play work out in your favor. It's just they got to bring that turnaround story to work. And I think over the next few quarters, you may start to see that as their vehicles, as they are able to reduce that cost of their vehicles.
Yep. And that will happen at some point, we would think anyway. All right. We're going to jump to your favorite part, man. We're going to do a little bit of sports. And I know you know a lot about all these different players, but I'm excited about the young quarterbacks. I'm excited about preseason and the opportunity that these young quarterbacks get. And, you know, when anybody who followed the draft in the NFL this past year, they know what I'm talking about as far as 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's quarterbacks everywhere, right? So tonight, you've got a guy like Bryce Young, by the way. They were with the Jets. They had, you know, one of these deals where you get together for a scrimmage and all the rest of that. Really, really cool. He was absolutely floored and excited because he likes to model his game a lot after Aaron Rodgers. The two of them sat around talking about it and this, that, and the other. And I got to tell you, and nobody ever talks about this, Glenn, and I'll throw this out to you. Everybody says Pat Mahomes started this whole thing with this sideways arm throws and these off-balance throws. Aaron Rodgers has been doing that for the last 18 years. That is who he is. He's not a big guy. You know, when you look around and you find the quarterbacks that aren't necessarily big, but they can figure out a way to still get the ball off, and they sometimes do it sideways, sometimes they're doing it, you know, odd ways. I think that's the key. So you've got he and Bryce Young talking about it, and that was pretty fun to watch. We'll see that played on Hard Knocks next Tuesday. I'm sure of that. That'll be great. But you've got that. You've got Richardson, who everybody's fallen in love with now. Now, he's still got to play football. I mean, he looks great, you know, doing stuff. He's got to play some football. And then you got C.J. Stroud. That's a game that's going to be played as well. So what do you think about these three quarterbacks? Which one would you say, as a guy who's been there, which one looks like he's NFL ready now? Because some of them might sit for a while. Some of them might start too early. But who's going to actually take this thing and actually look good doing it?
Yeah, I think CJ Stroud is that guy. I like Bryce Young a lot. I mean, like you said, the similarities with his movement is there comparatively to like Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes. Like you said, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was the one to start that. And I remember back in 2013, 2014, pre-Mahomes, we would talk about him all the time in practice and even practice some of his throwing motions too. So he is, you know, obviously the GOAT when it comes to all things mechanical when it comes to throwing. But as far as the young guys coming up, I love Stroud out of Houston. Obviously, I'm a little biased. But he's got a great test coming up here against Belichick, who is a master schemer, and he can take away any weapon that you have on your side, and he's going to put Stroud to the test. So tonight is a great night to see how Stroud can perform in a pro offense and against just a mastermind of a defensive coach in Bill Belichick. I love Bryce Young at the Panthers. Obviously, he number one pick for a reason. And it'll be interesting to see what they do. They got a young team over there. I think he's got a lot of weapons around him as well. But I think overall who's set up for success is Stroud. I think he's going to have a great defense. You got Will Anderson on that other side now to help him out, keep him off the field if needed. Keep Stroud on the field. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. The games tonight are great. And we've got another quarterback that we're going to talk about in here just a second that I know you love and who has improved big time in Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence before I talk about him?
Yeah, let me tell you something. I love the kid at Clemson. I loved him coming out of Clemson, what he had to do. He unfortunately had a terrible coach who was more interested in other things other than coaching football. And thank God they got rid of him as fast as they possibly could after a year, I believe. And so Trevor Lawrence now under Doug Peterson, here's his numbers from those 2 years, by the way. So underneath that bozo from Ohio State, he had 12 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. And in 1 year, he flipped it around to have 25 touchdowns and 8 interceptions and 4,100 yards, and was the player that we all saw and watched in college at Clemson when he was absolutely unstoppable. I think this guy is the next great quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't get talked about, right? I mean, everybody talks about this guy and that guy and this guy. Trevor Lawrence never talked about, even with the season he had last year and his production. And by the way, they played the Kansas City Chiefs pretty well. So it's not like they got blown out or anything. So there is a lot to be said. I like what we're seeing out of him. I think there's a lot of really good young quarterbacks now in the NFL when we really didn't have very many to look at. Now I think we've had an expansion of that. I think these guys understand the game and they've got all the different qualities. But I think Trevor Lawrence with ETN as his running back, who he didn't have the first year either, blew out his knee. There's a lot of reasons why Jacksonville could be a pretty interesting team, I think. So as far as the young guns here, I think Trevor Lawrence is ready to take the next step even further.
Yeah, and I hate to see it because they're with my boys in the AFC South, but I mean, they are putting together an impressive team over there, and I love Etienne to help him out in the backfield. I think Trevor Lawrence, you know, coming out of college, he was talked about like that guy, right? Yeah. And then he had those 2 seasons. I mean, look, you can't blame him for that. Coaching really does matter in the NFL, especially at the quarterback level, and it just showed that he just had a horrible group of at least that one coach that we're talking about, right? And it was just a disaster. I'm sure the facilities was a disaster, just being there in practice, in the locker room, etc. You're down all the time. I've seen it, but in 2022, he came out firing over 4,000 yards, like you said, and I think he's going to continue to improve. I think he's going to make a run, you know, to be one of those top 3-4 quarterbacks in the league, maybe even this year. And it'll be impressive, you know, to see if their defense can really help them out on that level as well, because they have struggled a little bit overall that side. But tough team in the AFC South. I think they are the ones to beat. I'm still not looking at the Colts, if you don't mind us pivoting a little bit here to a little AFC South discussion. But I love Anthony Richardson. I mean, he's a tremendous prospect. The film highlights are incredible. Him slinging it, you know, 60, 70 yards down the field on a dime. But again, this guy's more of a long-term play, I think. And right now in the short term, I think you have 2 teams in Houston and in the Jags that are young teams that could really, you know, carry the AFC South here in the future. Let's not forget about the Titans too. Older quarterback, but hell of a team. And they just added a hell of a wide receiver too in Hopkins.
Yeah. Your old guy from Houston, Hopkins. He's great. You've got the best running back as far as size and punishing in football. I mean, you've got a real team there, I think, in Tennessee. The South is looking pretty good. I like what we're seeing there, all these quarterbacks and everything else. I mean, how fun is that? And by the way, in Tennessee, they have drafted a few that are sitting there waiting in the wings, as they say. So they're not that far away. It should be a lot of fun. I'm excited about that particular group of teams or whatever. I think that they've done a great job. Richardson, if he can put together what he's got physically with what he needs to have mentally, he could be great. Now, he was not great last year. He was great at times and terrible at times. I've never seen – you want to talk about volatility in the markets. How about the volatility of Richardson? He looked unbelievable to start the season. The next week he looked terrible. The next week he looks great. The next week he looks terrible. He needs to find something where he's more consistent, and that really is the key to the NFL. You've got to be consistent. You can't have those kind of games. But anyway, well, any more bang.coms or anything like that you got going on, man?
I don't think so. I just hope the Colts continue that flip-flop, like you said, and Richardson just continues that for our sake. But look, again, I'm biased. I want them to win, my team to win. But no, yeah, of course, go to marketrebellion.com/bang. We can't tell you we have any inside scoops on the NFL. We do have a nice sports column that we do. But if you want those UOA bangs, go to marketrebellion.com/bang, and you can get that buy one, get one off deal per month there. So check it out.
All right. Appreciate you coming on, Glenn. Always great. And We had a snippet of John. We didn't know what we were going to get. We never heard from the guy. I mean,
Too
it's
much
like he's
Rioja over there, you know?
he's over in Spain doing God knows what, but whatever. Anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of the week and weekend. We'll see you Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern time.